Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. Today is my non-spoiler review of Wonder Woman 1984. Merry Christmas, everybody. We all got to see Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max safely in your home if you don't have any theaters open or you don't feel safe going to them. But if you did get to see it in theaters, I envy you so much. I did get to see Wonder Woman 1984 on my TV, though, so that was quite an experience to see a pretty big blockbuster film for the first time on your screen. And thankfully I have a pretty big screen, though I still miss the theatrical experience. And I think this is one of those movies that you definitely need to see in the movie theaters. I'll give it that. That's pretty much something that should truly be a cinematic experience. And I really actually think that one could get a lot more coming out of this movie if you had watched it in theaters. But in any case, it is out on HBO Max for domestic, the United States only for now. Hopefully, we'll see other international people getting to experience this in some shape or form soon. But this is Wonder Woman 1984, and let's get on with the review. This is Wonder Woman 1984, set in the 80s. As you know, a lot of time has passed since the first film, which took place in World War I. Now it's in the 80s. It's a different time period. And one thing that Patty Jenkins wants to pull across is that it's in the 80s, right? And for the most part, yeah, it really is in the 80s. I mean, that first opening scene, especially, well, after you see the opening scene in Themyscira, which is already out on HBO Max. Everybody's seen that. But after that, it takes place in the 80s. It shows you the 80s. And it does kind of a thing with like a Superman 2 or Superman 1, especially it's like you get to see Wonder Woman do her thing in the 80s. And they do a lot of different things that are kind of like, I want to say too much hijinks. It's certainly pulled back from what I've heard before, in terms of when I get, reactions I hear and other people's reviews about it. To me, that whole 80s hijinks really was only that beginning part. Yeah, that's pretty much it about it. Then afterwards, I kind of forgot it was in the 80s. Like only in certain instincts where in certain scenes where they kind of just really show it, like the certain clothing, certain people who wear at the gym, or Steve Trevor, or what stuff he wore, and just the scenery. But for the most part, all that Donner-esque hijinks, if you will, was pretty much in that first part of the movie, just that little small bit where Wonder Woman does her thing, and I thought that was kind of good. That was like, okay, I really truly, when I saw that mall scene, that clip that was going around, and also the trailer, I thought there was going to be a lot more of that. But thankfully, no, actually, it wasn't. It was just that's it, and then you're just familiar. You're just reminded that it's an 80s once in a while, and it's truly in that setting. Yes, it's very colorful for the most part, kind of like how we think of the 80s, not exactly live in the 80s, but then that kind of just goes away after a while. And then you just kind of concentrate on the story and the actual plot for that matter. But like Superman 2, there are moments like that, but it's not too much. In fact, you know what? There's not much action at all. Like there's action in the beginning, and then there's a whole section, I'd say almost an hour, of just building the characters, building the plot, building the story, finding out where Diana Prince is right now, and then other characters like Barbara Minerva and Maxwell Lord, right? Those three characters, you kind of just it kind of just establishes them and establishes where they are, what their motivations are. And that's pretty much the whole 1 hour chunk of the story before we even get to the actual action where it actually starts to pick up. And then it gets going. So I think for people who are, more in the lines of like Wonder Woman 1, there was a lot of non-action in that as well, but the pacing of it was a little bit better. In this terms, if you're looking for a lot of action, you're not going to get a lot of action right away, apart from the opening scenes. After that, it was just lots of plot, lots of story building. There's a lot of character building, and which is actually perfectly fine. I actually enjoyed a lot of the characters. Gal Gadot plays the exact Diana Prince from Wonder Woman 1, and there is some semblance of her in her BVS version as well. But for the most part, this is exactly her from Wonder Woman 1. That's her character, and it continues to build upon that with her being more experienced about the world around her. She's no longer the new, fish out of the water scenario here. That's actually reserved for Steve Trevor now, as you've seen in the trailers. But she is more experienced. She knows her area. Her character is definitely the sequel to the first one. And from what happened in the first one, makes her the character she is in Wonder Woman 1984. Without Steve Trevor, she really has no one. And so I love that it takes that head on. She just doesn't go along with life, and this whole story is to build her character for what comes after Wonder Woman 1984. And so to me, I think that is a nice progression within the story and how this takes place, and the lessons and the morals that are taking place within Wonder Woman 1984 that grow her character, even her, I would like to say, capabilities are much grown in this as well. And I love that. I love that there are some comic book things that happen in here that you are familiar with in terms of Wonder Woman. A lot of creative ways Patty Jenkins of throwing in aspects of her lore within the story in interesting ways, and things that I never would have thought of, but then looked at him like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That really does make sense. And then how she eventually gets her full potential is one of the most amazing things I've seen Wonder Woman do. Like it's not as chill factor, although I did feel a bit of that, and as no man's land, that kind of moment. But for me, a fan of certain DC characters in as you may know, got me really excited for these parts of the movie. It really excited me, and I had a big smile on my face. I was like, yes. So it really was a lot of awesome moments in terms of that. But I think the story itself, the characters itself, really told the story. Steve Trevor, now everybody hyped his return up, but quite honestly, in my mind, he didn't really matter that much to the story, in my opinion. He was part of the plot, but he wasn't the central character for me. He was a plot point for me. So it didn't bother me that much. In fact, his return was kind of like, wow, that's kind of a nice throwback to the first one, but it didn't take away from the story it is now. It wasn't and I know Patty Jenkins says it's not for him just because we love that, kind of a connection between Gal and Chris Pine. They love that kind of the chemistry there, and that's why he brought him back. I think that was true. Like they did bring him back because of that chemistry, and utilized as a plot point and a sort of lesson, I think, in the overall story of this thing. So for me, he was great. He was phenomenal, just like how he was in the first Wonder Woman, but it didn't add anything more. I was really curious about Kristen Wiig's portrayal as Barbara Nerva, and a lot of people are kind of thinking that, oh, was she going to be like Jamie Foxx as Electro, or Jim Carrey as Riddler? No, actually, her progression made sense. It worked very well, in my opinion. And I think it may not have been the strongest character within the story. I think she's right. She's probably the third, I'd say, in terms of character build. But it's nothing too strikingly like changed, right? She was a little bit of that clumsiness, but wasn't so cheesy in the way she was being clumsy. It wasn't in a way. It was very, I would say, normal. I would say, in terms of just being an introvert, and I think that played off well. Although her other people not, kind of noticing her was kind of like, oh, really? That was a little bit too over the top, and some of the other people around her, but her, not so much. I think she played it off well. I'm actually kind of happy she played it pretty normal. This is not Kristen Wiig from Ghostbusters or any of the comedy movies or the SNL. She actually brought something cool. And when she finally took on Cheetah, like she really pulled out a lot of that drama, right? A lot of that drama, and pulled away a lot of and making you understand where she's coming from, understand why she's the way she is, understand where she needs to get to the point. And I want to say that Penny Jenkins says that you actually see her kind of like American Werewolf London kind of shape shift. Nah, that didn't happen here. That didn't happen. And you'll find out why when you actually watch the movie, how that progression from, like, say, this to this, there is no real transformation. There was transformation from this to this in terms of how she starts to build that, but from here to here, I would say it's not completely earned, but it does make sense. Not completely earned, but does make sense. But I have to tell you, the strongest, the best, possibly the most moving character is Maxwell Lord. That's right. Wonder Woman was Wonder Woman. Diana Prince. We've seen her before. She plays pretty much the same character here. Barbara Nerva, a refreshing take. Kristen Wiig, a refreshing way of her to play it. But Pedro Pascal, this movie took it home for me. Not only is he a villain that you understand, but a villain that everybody, you, me, everybody, even right now, can truly, truly feel like we could become. And I gotta be honest, near the end of this film, this man made me cry. My wife and I sat there. At the end of the film, we both lost it. Like I'm not like, we both lost it, and proceeded to go and hug our little boys. This man right here. When you first get introduced to him, you're like, okay, it's some kind of like, just a regular, car salesman, villain, whatever. But then something happens, and you find out what's beyond the car salesman, the oil skin, slick snake oil skin. You peel it back and you start to see who he is. And then, in fact, you start to see the whole world. Even Diana starts to see the whole world kind of peel back their skin. And it is an amazing moment during the climax scene. I hear people talking about it's anticlimactic and stuff, and I say no, it's not. Sure, it's not one of the best action scenes ever. In fact, a lot of the action scenes are pretty okay at best. It's an action. It's nothing memorable in terms of when you compare it to such as Zack Snyder's films, for instance, or even the first Wonder Woman. But it didn't need action in the climax to really bring out the emotion there. And I'm going to say this, probably by far another great reason to have that Beautiful Eye soundtrack in there. and it made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense. And it was a powerful ending. But I think people want to know, especially fans of my show, want to know if this connects to BVS. Because that was one of the things that I was curious about. And I would say it can, or it doesn't have to. You may be curious about that, but I'm honestly saying it doesn't have to. It doesn't. But if you make it, like Zack said, it's up to you. If you make it connect, it can. When you really come down and think about it, and through the experiences that Diana Prince goes through from Wonder Woman 1 and Wonder Woman 1984 to here, you do see that. You kind of see that coming across as being factual. Like this is actually could definitely be the sequel to Wonder Woman 1984. There's another character that shows up and watch through the post-credit scenes, but it makes sense for that character from the story that is presented in this movie about that certain character you see in the post-credit scenes actually kind of symbolizes Diana Prince a little bit and how she carries herself through decades as she gets to Batman v Superman. So in my mind, yes, it actually does connect to Batman v Superman in my mind. So, but Wonder Woman 1984, honestly, I love the film. I did. My wife and I, we love the film. Is it as action-oriented as Wonder Woman 1? No. Is it as visually appealing and really cool and also a lot of depth and everything as Batman v Superman or even Man of Steel? No. But I would say I enjoyed this more than Aquaman. I enjoyed this more than Shazam. I enjoyed this more than Suicide Squad or Birds of Prey. In terms of DCEU films, it's definitely in the top 4. So that's all I'll say about that. Unfortunately, I really want to talk a lot about it more, but I'm going to save it for my spoiler breakdown review, maybe in a day or two. All right. Well, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you absolutely love this daily dose of decent content and movie shows and video games, please click the like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, keep this hot dog light on, and I'll see you next time.